One's ready. One's ready. Go!
What's up, Pam? Oh, the AFSPECWAR pipeline, the new pipeline is sitting on your desk and you're going to look at it? Okay, cool. Yeah, have a good one. Sorry, guys, I was talking to somebody else. What's up? Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. I have a feeling that this might be the first time that anybody's been excited to see me alone on the podcast, maybe ever, and it's probably the last time. So if you're tracking episode 487, go watch it right now. There's huge changes coming to the AFSPECWAR pipelines. Here's what we're going to do. We got some updates for you. Our phone has been ringing absolutely off the hook. There's a whole bunch of people at a whole bunch of different positions, some very high-ranking positions. Thank you, boys. They gave us a call. They gave us some extra info for you guys because the messaging is a little bit lacking. I'm trying to be as gracious as I possibly can be. I'm going to leave my opinion out of this episode, and I'm not going to do the normal Aaron thing. Well, really, it's a normal Trent thing to be super sarcastic and super dry about stuff. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give you the updates. You guys need the information. We're the source of the information. We're going to get it to you. That's it. That's how we're going to play this one. So we've been having a lot of these conversations. You guys got to understand there's a lot of feelings. Number one, there's a lot of feelings good. There's a lot of feelings bad. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of feeling that there could be a little bit more transparency in this process. It could have been messaged a little bit better. We're going to handle that at a later date. I got it. Change is the only constant in the military. We have a bunch of frequently asked questions specifically on this topic that you guys have asked, and they have been frequent. We've been getting a lot of DMs, a lot of comments, a lot of messages, a lot of carrier pigeons have flown to my house here in beautiful Northwest Las Vegas. It's like 110 out. It's going to be real hot all this week. So there's your weather update. So now it feels like Trent's here. And Peaches is actually here. You just can't see him because I have a standing desk. And you get it. He's down there. So let's get into it, okay? So the Air Force Special Warfare Pipeline, as you heard on episode 487, go take a listen to it, like it, hit the subscribe button while you're there. There's a whole bunch of people that listen to this podcast that aren't subscribed. Could you just subscribe for us? It would really help us out. Please. Thanks. So episode 487, we talked about the pipeline, right? The word on the street, and I want you guys to understand, none of this is approved yet. It's moving very fast. It's in court. It is my opinion. This is me just speaking as a dude, as a retired dude with a day job that talks on a microphone to people. I think this is going to get approved. I think that they're moving, every signal that I'm seeing is moving in the direction of approval for exactly what we laid out in that episode 487. So go check it out. So 3-week land-based selection. I'm just going to go through these questions as you guys asked us. These are the big hitters that we've got. We got some great updates. I got an update literally before I got onto this podcast. I got it, no kidding, on the way home. It sounds like good news, so I think it's a good one. So we'll talk about that when we get to it in the stack here. So the number one question that we've gotten from everybody is, how do I train? Should I even get in? And oh no, how do I pick my job? Okay, so we're going to handle it. So first and foremost, guys, like we always say, guys and girls. Remember, guys is a gender neutral term. When I say guys, I mean everybody, just like Pete Hegseth. When he was talking about the guys in Midnight Hammer, he meant the entire crew. Give him a break. Let's not all get up in our filios about Pete Hegseth. So guys, gals, all of you, listen, if you want to serve, you should serve. And that's it. It's about service to this country. There's always going to be change in the pipeline. My pipeline didn't look the same as your pipeline. Mine was objectively better. Peaches went through before me. So, of course, he's going to say that his pipeline was harder. The water was wetter. The rocks were heavier. The guys that went through in the 80s are going to insist that the Indoc model was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Some of them are right and some of them are wrong. And there's positives and there's negatives. It's all about service, y'all. If you don't want to serve, and this little change is getting you all Twitter pated, and now you don't even know if you want to serve the greatest Air Force in the DoD, then don't. Then we don't need you. Because I'll tell you what, your entire career is going to be changes. We went through name changes and patch changes and uniform changes and the way that we deployed. And then you weren't allowed to have a color for your team. Like you used to be red team, blue team, silver team. Then you couldn't be a team. And then we called ourselves troops, and you couldn't call yourselves troops. And then you couldn't call the troops kids. And then you could, like, all of this stuff. It's constant. It's all the time. The only difference today is that you got this little death rectangle that you can look at the entire world in memes, and you can be part of these processes, right? Now, of course, I already said that messaging right now is a little bit of an issue, everybody. So we're going to try to message and get that stuff out to you, but you have an awareness of this thing like no one has ever done before. Peaches, when he enlisted shortly after the Korean War in like 1961, that dude had no clue. He came in off a trifold pamphlet and a hope and a dream as a 17-year-old kid. Knew nothing about the pipeline. There were no training programs. There were no podcasts like this that would get you every bit of information the second that we could possibly get it to you. you guys are just going to have to accept that you're not going to know everything about the process. So the number one question that we got, oh, should I get in? I don't even know if I should get in. Oh, there's so much change. This feels so disjointed. First of all, how would you know? How would you know if it's disjointed or not? Do you have a whole lot of experience in military planning processes of changing an entire special operations pipeline? I have probably more experience with you. And granted, this is a big change. It's a lot of stuff that's going on, but it shouldn't shake your desire to serve this country. So we'll leave it there. Talking about your jobs, right? So one of the big updates that we had, and we talked about it on 487, we're going to talk about it here. I'm going to talk about it here just a little bit, is the SWOE-V program, ladies and gents, is probably going away for a bunch of different reasons, right? Sometimes you have a program, you think it's going to be great. I was a big fan of SWOE-V. Hey, if you're not sure what job you want to do in, that's a special warfare operator enlistment vector program. So basically you could sign up and you could just do any one of the jobs, right? You would pick your job at a certain part of special warfare assessment selection. They were doing it, at the end of special warfare assessment selections as it's now. That's probably going away, and they're probably going back to guaranteed contracts. A couple of super simple reasons here. It's impossible to project how many people you're going to get into a given career field if you don't have a number coming in. If you just have a whole group of people, there's like 135 people in the start of a special warfare assessment selection class, and they're like, well, we're going to do one of these 4 jobs. Combat controllers don't know how many folks they're getting. Pararescue doesn't know how many folks they're getting. TAC-P doesn't know how many folks they're getting. You know that you're going to have people that don't get through the program, that are going to take a different job, that aren't going to be able to make some of the higher requirements, right? Like if you can't make it through pre-dive and you can't make it through dive school, then TAC-P might be it for you until you can get those water skills and you're ready to cross over to be a combat controller or a PJ. We all know that those are just truisms, right? Well, SWOE-V highlighted some of those things, and it just makes more sense, in my opinion, to go back to the GTAP program. I think that's what's going to happen. I can't speak for the recruiting service. I'm just looking at all the signals. I'm connecting a bunch of dots, just like Charlie Day up on the board. Who's Pepe Sylvia? Who's Pepe Sylvia? And I'm just trying to make my best educated guess here. I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. I think, though, the way that we're going to go is guaranteed contracts. The thing that you should be excited about for this, everybody, and this is a hilarious thing too, because you guys, beforehand, you were like, well, I signed up to be a PJ. I didn't get a PJ and they didn't offer me another job. Like I would have guys literally out of INDOC be like, well, I didn't get a spot at combat control school or TAC-P, and they just kind of like kicked me out and didn't give me a choice of another job. So that was a problem with GTAP before. Then we went to SWOE-V, and now the problem is, well, I got all the way through assessment selection and they don't have a PJ spot for me. So they asked if I want to be a controller. I don't really want to be a controller. You guys are going to complain about everything. It just is what it is. That's the number one thing the military, fighting man and woman is good at, is absolutely whining and complaining about everything. You could get a crisp $100 bill and somebody be like, well, it's not the new 100. It's the old 100. Who can spend $100 anywhere anyway? You know what I mean? Give it to me in crypto. Shout out to XRP. I hope that stuff moons. So the GTAP program, I think, is coming back. And I think what they're going to do is, as you sign up with your recruiter, you're going to be asked to select a job. It doesn't mean that you have one shot at that job and that's it. It could mean that. We just don't know yet. It hasn't shaken out, because that's going to be a new iteration as well. So here's what I'll say for now. We can't possibly give you advice on stuff like this. We get hit up all the time where people ask us, hey, I'm thinking about going combat controller, but I might just go SWOE-V and try to get combat controller. I'm just going to tell you the numbers. PJs right now are recruiting. They're getting a ton of people in the door. The majority of people that are showing up at SWAS want to be PJs. They've filled all their spots at least this year for PJs. You can't even get one. The folks that have went through, there's been a handful, probably more than a handful this year, of stories of there's been a big class of folks. They graduated, and a lot of them raised their hand to be PJ, and they're like, listen, you got through assessment selection. You did what we asked you to do. However, there's just not a spot for you. This happened to 2 folks in the last class that went through, because there just weren't that many PJ slots left. Combat control, special reconnaissance. Remember, special reconnaissance is super small. If you're trying to get into special reconnaissance, those numbers aren't big anyway. So when somebody gets selected and put in those courses, those seats fill up pretty quick. Combat control, if you go in SWOE-V, you're pretty safe to say, hey, I want to be a combat controller, and you'll probably get that job. The number one way to guarantee yourself to get the job that you want to do, like let's say you just got your heart set on being a PJ, and you want to be a PJ and nothing else, then in your recruiting process, you should really push to get that PJ slot on a guaranteed contract. And then you have to perform at assessment selection. That's the way that you get that job. There's nothing guaranteeing any of these jobs if you go in with a SWOE-V contract as it stands right now. Like I said, that might change. But you have to make that decision for yourself and realize the second and third order effects of that decision-making process. If you say, hey, I want to be a PJ and I want to be a PJ and nothing else, and the recruiter looks at you and goes, tight, you're going to have to wait 8 months to go to assessment selection. Or I can send you to SWOE-V and you can take your chances next month. That's a tough decision, and that one's on you, and only you can know that. And we've done a million episodes on, am I ready? How long should I wait to ship? All of those other questions. You can just go through the YouTube and check out the hundreds of hours of content that we have on those decision-making processes. But in the end, it's up to you. And remember, this is me, Uncle Aaron, giving you some personal information or some personal advice here, if you want to take it like that. Your talk with the recruiter is a negotiation. You hold all the leverage. If you want to be a controller and nothing else, then you make that super clear to your recruiter and you say, hey, no matter when I have to leave, no matter what I have to do, I'm going to wait until I get a guaranteed combat control contract. And that's the contract that I'm signing. And that's how you do that. The other question that we got kind of in this same bucket, and we're going to try to go kind of chronologically through the pipeline, right? This new pipeline setup and answer your questions is, how should I be training? They're moving pre-dive to a different part. Okay. It's a land-based selection. It's going to be 3 weeks up front before you go to your Zulu course. That's the common skills course. The common skills course is going to be called the Zulu course. So that's how I'm going to refer to it so that you guys are all using the right terminology. It's a 3-week land-based selection. You're not going to see the water for a long time. The Zulu course right now, it's kind of like moving. It's a little bit of a moving target for how long it's going to be. Some say 12 weeks, some say 16 weeks. I've actually got a text out right now. 16 weeks, 80 academic days is exactly what the Zulu course is going to be. That is the most up-to-date information that you can possibly get. 16 weeks, 80 academic days for the Zulu course. That's a long time not to be in the water, right? It doesn't mean that you should stop training water. You know it's coming. You know that people quit in the pool. Nobody quits on land. We used to say that all the time. Our pool sessions used to be in the morning at NDOC. I went through one of the schedules where you would go to the pool in the morning and you get your water con out of the way. Then you would go to lunch and you'd come back and you'd fin, and then you had land stuff basically all afternoon, right? Sometimes you take your run really early in the morning and then go over to the pool. Short story is if you could make it through lunch, if you could get to that fin, the joke was, well, nobody quits on land. Like all the quitters are done today, right? The pool is still there. The pool is going to make the difference in your pipeline. No, you should not stop swimming. No, you should not stop doing water con. No, you should not stop understanding how to do these things the most efficiently that you possibly can. No, you should not stop being better at your craft, because that's going to have implications all the way through the pipeline that we're going to talk about. So should I even get in? That one's on you. If it's a question in your mind, I would ask you to look internally and figure that question out for yourself. How do you pick your job? We went over it, GTAP versus SWOE-V and some of the other nuances in there. And then should I stop training water? Nah, dog. No, you don't stop training water. You want to be a beast in the pool. You want to make sure that no matter what happens, no matter what they throw at you during this pipeline, that you can attack those things. Train efficiently, train smartly, train specifically. So when's this all going to start? When is the pipeline going to actually change? And what are going to be the changes, right? So we already talked about it. You can look at the entire episode 487 and see the entire thing, right? I'm going to keep pumping that episode because this is where we laid it all out and we talked about it in depth. It looks like this is all going to start in October. And it looked like I'm 90% there. This thing is in cord. People are signing off on it. We're getting a lot of feedback from a lot of different people that are all saying the same thing, is that this thing is going to go live in October. The first special warfare assessment selection course in this new model, the 3-week land-based selection, and then into the Zulu course, 16 weeks long, 80 training days, is going to start in October. That Zulu course would then start in November. You get in, you have your in-processing, get yourself together, you go through 3 weeks worth of that land-based selection, and then you move on to the Zulu course in October. So the thing about that, in November, right? So the thing about that is it may be 80 training days over 16 weeks, but there's also 2 weeks in December of Exodus where everybody goes for Christmas and for New Year's. So that first course is actually going to go all the way. It should end in like February, but it looks like now it'll end in like mid-March. And let me talk through this and see if I did my math correctly. So if you start in November, 16 weeks is 4 months. So November, December, January, February, You've got 2 extra weeks that you're not going to be there. So it looks like mid-March is when you're going to graduate out of that Zulu course. It's called the Zulu course because all of the AFSCs are going to be there. So every single AFSC, all the 1Z career fields, excuse me, that's why we called it the Zulu course, right? 1Z1 pararescue, 2, 3, and 4 combat control, SR, TAC-P, respectfully, right? Everybody's going to go there. The Zulu course is going to be common skills. I'm explaining this just like I did in 487 so that you guys can wrap your head around some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, especially apprentice course impacts that it's going to have later down the road. But you're going to do all of these like skills that we used to do separately at different locations. PJ taught tactics, PJU taught tactics, right? The combat rescue officer PJ apprentice course taught tactics, and they taught basic tactics, small unit tactics, ranger handbook stuff, right? Well, so did the TAC-Ps, so did combat control, so did the SR guys. And they all learned, and Trent and I kind of talked about it. You can have different instructors teaching the same exact material, and you can have different instructional outputs. And it's really hard to tell if you're getting the correct instructional outputs from 4 different career fields if you don't have eyes on all of them as they learn. It's an easier way to evaluate all the students at once, and all those skills are exactly alike. Shoot, move, and communicate are not different between PJ, combat control, TAC-P, and SR. They really aren't. Battle Drill 4 is Battle Drill 4, whether you're a MARSOC Raider, an Army F-11 Bravo infantry guy, or a Navy SEAL. Battle Drill 4 is still Battle Drill 4. So that's what they're going to teach you that common skills course. Radios, weapons, land nav, shoot, move, communicate. That's what you're getting down there. One thing that we did say is they put it out that SEER might also be included in that. We take SEER to level C. Level C is the highest. In talks with some of the SEER higher ups, they had a very, very truncated timeline for all of these things to happen. They cut down a lot of training days out of a whole lot of things because, again, the goal of the entire special warfare assessment selection training pipeline move is to get people to graduate, with the exception of PJs, in 12 months or less. That's the goal. Get you through the pipeline in a year and get you out onto the teams to go do the jobs. PJs are a little bit different. We still have that 8-month paramedic requirement. We can't do paramedic. We're already doing from 0 to paramedic, like literally a high school graduation certificate and an ASVAB around 50. And then you're going through a paramedic course at civilians that takes 2 years to do. We already do it in 8 months. There was no way to do it faster. The MP3 program down at Lackland is great at turning out paramedics. It just is what it is. So PJs are going to have a 18-month to 20-month pipeline total, because they're still going to have to go through everything and then tack on that 8 months of extra time doing their medical training. Okay. So the Zulu course, the other thing that's going to happen is as opposed to at the end of assessment selection, like, and this is with the assumption that SWOE-V is still a thing, right? Because it's not dead yet. We don't know if it's going away. That was just my opinion and what I think is going to happen. If the SWOE-V pipeline is still active, meaning you can enlist SWOE-V and you can go through the pipeline as a job that isn't guaranteed yet, right? When are you going to pick your job? Well, it looks like they're going to put that somewhere at the end of the Zulu course. So it looks like you're going to go through a three-week land-based selection. You'll slide into that 16-week Zulu course. You'll be further evaluated. You'll have further contact with those instructors from the different career fields. You'll have time to talk to your friends. You'll have a little bit more time to think about it. And roughly at the end of that, and again, this isn't set in stone, is when you'll actually raise your hand and say, okay, I want to be a PJ. I want to be a controller. I want to be an SR. I want to be a TAC-P. And that's what you got, right? The other thing that's going to happen at the end of this Zulu course is there's going to be a ramp to get ready for pre-dive. That's when you're going to start seeing water. Now, I can't tell you exactly what training day or exactly what training week you're going to start seeing some water, but everybody that thinks that they're going to track towards PJ, CCT, SR with the potential to go to dive school, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, you're going to start doing subsurface stuff. Everybody that's tracking toward TAC-P, what you're going to do is you're going to start doing your surface swimming and getting yourself ready to go there. So swimming is still a thing. It's still an evaluated event. You are still going to see the pool. It's just going to be in a different location. So I can't foot stop this enough. To everybody out there, I saw 100 comments these past couple days where people were like, well, guess I could stop training the pool. I wouldn't recommend it, homie. If it was me, I would be in that pool just training as hard as I was before all of this stuff started going down. So I hope that I've beaten that dead horse. You are going to see the pool. After the Zulu course, you're going to slide into pre-dive. Okay, so this one is a big one. A little birdie today hit me up. There's a rumor on the street that AFSOC is going to ask formally for dive to get put back in the pipeline. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen. I do know that it's a thing. I can't possibly even give you my opinion on this one. I was the guy that said there's no way that they can just say dive is no longer a requirement and take it out of the pipeline and make it not a requirement. I was wrong on that. I'd hate to be wrong here, especially with you guys, spending your training time, talking about this stuff. The internet is forever. If Tim Kennedy has taught us anything, they'll be able to pull that video up, and on that clip, I'll have to hear it every single time I say something stupid. Somebody's just going to send me the clip and me being like, oh yeah, dive's totally coming back in. Here's the problem, and this is a little bit of an Air Force and a training-ism, is that when they remove dive school, they remove the requirement for dive tasks from the pipeline. So they would also have to reinsert those dive requirements into your 3-level requirements, right? So when we graduate, when you're in training, you're a 0 level. You're technically a 1 level, but you're a student. When you graduate, those apprentice courses, that's when you're given your 3 level. That's why they're called apprentice. The 3 level is an apprentice. They remove that 3 level requirement from combat control, special reconnaissance, and combat control SR and TAC P as a 3 level requirement. It wasn't for TAC P anyway. The other folks they removed it for was STOE. Sorry, that's what I was misspeaking on there. As those initial entry requirements, those don't exist anymore. So they would have to also, if this memo gets approved, again, rumor mill, AFSOC is asking for it to get put back in the pipeline, those requirements would also have to get put back in. The big question about pre-dive, and this is causing a lot of stress ever since pre-dive, ever since we sort of rearranged it and those requirements were no longer there. And that's important. It seems like an admin thing. It's not. That's how we evaluate you in the pipeline. If I don't have a line item, if I don't have a requirement to judge you against, then I can't possibly fail you for doing a thing. So that's why down in the pipeline right now, you have a bunch of folks, not the PJs, because it's still a 3-level requirement. But when I'm speaking specifically about SR, combat control, STOE, there are people that are not completing the course at pre-dive. Now, you can't quit. If you say the words, I quit, the instructors are going to hold you to that. If you quit in the pool, you quit, and you gone. So don't think that you can just quit on your team and then just go on your merry way. That's not a thing. What you can do right now is you can pop, you can not complete events, you can never pass a single event, and you can technically fail pre-dive, but still go on the pipeline. We've gotten a couple messages from folks that are down in the pipeline right now. Guys, I know it sucks. I know it sucks to look to your left and to your right and to see a teammate that you know did not meet the same standard that you did. I got it. But that's a you problem. You have to figure out how to make that right with yourself, whether it's through being a mature individual and being graceful about it. If you want to be petty and constantly talk crap to your teammates about how you passed and they didn't, that one's on you. I'll say that doesn't make for a very good team room environment. I don't know if I would want to say that to a teammate or have a teammate say it to me, but that's on you. I understand it's a shot to morale. I understand that it's dividing the teams a little bit. I don't know if they're going to find a way to fix it. I can tell you how they fix it. They put the 3-level requirement back for everybody, and everybody goes through the same standard. The problem right now is that there's one standard for PJs, and there's not the same standard across the board for the other folks. And it just is what it is. The game is what the game is. I'm not asking you to agree with the game. I'm asking you to play the game and play it in the rules and the rule sets that we have right now. So it just is what it is. You can't play chess when everybody else is playing checkers. People can quit, not quit. People can fail pre-dive events, pop on underwaters, pop on whatever event they want. They can never get a buddy breathing rep done. They can do their mask and snorkel incorrectly. And it's just a thing, right? The penalty for that is that they are going to have to go through their entire pipeline and then achieve a no kidding pre-dive course that they graduate as an operator. So if that gives you any, it's not like they're never going to have to do it and they're just going to show up to dive school. That's not the way that it works. There's a SOCOM requirement and a DOD requirement that says you have to pass a vetted pre-dive course within 6 months of showing up to dive school. The Air Force dive school is no different than Marine and Navy SEAL dive school, Army CDQC. They all have that same requirement, right? When I worked up at the 2-2, there were people that were vetted Green Beret operators that were in that pool. We'd go over to take our fitness test or we'd go over to do dive training or doing whatever at the Soldiers Field House over on JBLM. And there were people that had been in with multiple deployments that were in that pool getting their butts handed to them because they were going through pre-dive, getting ready through school. It's just going to be exactly how it is for everybody else. Everybody else does it this way. At least on the Army side. The Navy does it a little bit differently because their dive school is wrapped up into their initial training, right? But that's what the game is. So however it is that you need to get right with that, I get it. Like when I look at Peaches, Peaches and I give each other crap all the time because he's a controller, he's short, I'm jacked and tan with a great head of hair, and I'm a PJ. So of course we give each other crap. But a really good thing was that I know that he went through the same course that I did, to the same standard that I did. And I know the instructors held that standard to him the same way they held it to me. And that gives me trust in him. So when stuff gets really hard, I know he's going to be there with me. And we're missing a little bit of that right now. And I get it. I get the feeling, right? But we're just going to have to get over it. And we're just going to have to move on. I hope dive comes back. I don't know if it's going to be back. I hope it is. I hope the memo works. The pipeline, as we said, it's going to be a year long, with the exception of the PJs. The 12-month goal here, we're hoping to talk to somebody down at the Special Warfare Training Wing and at the group and see where that number came from and see if that really does help. We covered it in 487. Here's what I'll say about the length of the pipeline. The standard has to be the standard. It doesn't matter if you can't mass produce soft forces. You cannot force this thing through on a timeline. So I'm going to extend a little bit of grace here. And I'm going to say that number had to be vetted through multiple levels. I'm hoping. And that number is achievable. And we have the same product that comes out of it. Maybe we've been wrong. And you have to open your mind up a little bit when we talk about this stuff and go, well, maybe an 18 to 24 month pipeline, maybe we could have cut it down. We talk about delays in the pipeline all the time. I'm always waiting on a free fall slot. I'm always waiting on a paramedic slot. I'm always waiting on this other school that we don't own. I get it. Maybe we can find some efficiencies. And I'll be the first to say, I'll be the first to call balls and strikes on this one too. But I'll be the first to say, like, if we're getting the same product out in 12 months, that's a pretty big win. And I'll be the first to raise my hand and be like, all right, man, I was wrong on this one. I think 12 months is a little fast. That's just my opinion on it. We're going to see what happens because I'm willing to wait and I'm willing to be wrong on this one. I hope I am. So pipeline, it's going to be 12 months long. Basically, when you split out, you'll get your Zulu course, you'll get your pre-dive. The folks that pass pre-dive will go to dive school in the pipeline. I don't know how that affects combat control, SR, and STO. Say, for instance, you have a bunch of controllers that just absolutely smoke pre-dive. I don't know if there's room for them to get into the dive school in their pipeline and get it knocked out before they go to the unit. It would make sense to me that that's the way that it works, but I can't give you 100% on that. I hope that that's the way it is, and I hope that they're talking about those folks that smoke pre-dive and have a chance to go straight to dive school and get that bad boy knocked out. If not, and again, doesn't apply to PJs. PJs, you got to pass pre-dive, and then you're going to go to dive school. For the controllers, the SR guys, the STOs, I hope that it works out for you that you smoke pre-dive, you trained all the way like you were supposed to, trained all the way up to your initial selection date. You were ready for the pool, and you crushed it on your first go, passed all your events. I hope you go down to dive school, knock that bad boy out, and go on with life. But we'll just have to see. We're going to hold what we got on that one. There are going to be some effects. We're going to talk about the pipeline, a little bit more. You're going to go to all your other specific shred out courses, essentially after the Zulu course. Some folks are going to go to dive, but you're going to go to your other courses, right? So you've already got shoot, move, communicate, radios. You've been selected. You've been assessed. You have your job. You're going to continue on your pipeline, and you're going to go with your skills training, and that's going to be skill specific. So dudes will still go to free fall, SEER, airborne, all these other courses, right? They'll get their dive knocked out. And then you get to the apprentice courses. The apprentice courses are all going to change. The selection model doesn't just affect the selection event that we're doing. It affects everything downstream. And it logically follows, right? If you've already learned shoot, move, and communicate, and good on them, this is something that I heard that I was like, okay, that's the right call, is they're training everybody to the highest standard. So if PJs had a higher standard for shooting than the combat controllers did, they didn't move the standard down to the controller level of shooting. They moved it up to the PJ standard. They're going to train everybody at the same standard, right? So that's going to flatline everybody. Everybody's at the same standard. I think that's a good thing. I think you want to train to your highest level. I want to make sure that everybody is capable, current, qualified in weapon systems, tactics, land nav, all of those things. I think it's a good thing. But it doesn't logically make sense to go to an apprentice course and then repeat that same information. So for instance, and I'll just talk about what I know the most, at PJU, there were 7 or 8 blocks of training as I'm thinking through it here. You would go land nav, mountain phase, tactics, weapons. You do tech rescue, you do medicine. There's some other, the crows break off and do some mission planning stuff, and crow, blocks 1 and blocks 2. You're not going to have to repeat all of that stuff down there. So it's going to be the same across all the apprentice courses. If you already learned that, those are going to come out of the apprentice courses, and those apprentice courses are going to get cut way down. Now, I don't know exactly how far they're going to get cut down. I would imagine the final evaluation phase down at pararescue, combat rescue officer apprentice course is going to still be there, right? So that's the final phase. That's your final evaluation. That's the beret event. When you graduate, that event happens at the end. When you get done, you're done with that pipeline. And for the PJs, you'll go to MP3 before you go to that course. You'll have everything done before you go to that course. For the combat controllers, SR, STO, TAC-P, you'll go through, essentially it'll look like the same flow, but it'll just be cut down, because any information that you learned previous, you're not going to be held to that, or you're not going to be taught that information later. You're going to be held to that standard for the entire pipeline. So you're expected to have and keep those skills. It's not like you can just brain dump the Zulu course. But those apprentice courses are going to get cut way, way down. I don't know what it looks like. I can't give you a training time or a training number date. But if you look at it, PJU was 6 months worth of time. Tactics, weapons and tactics phase. You're looking at land nav. A lot of those courses, that's a lot of time. That's 2 or 3 months of time. So the PJU course, the apprentice course for PJs, could be very short. So could combat control. So could SR. So could TAC-P. But that's all coming out in the wash. They are figuring all of that now. And again, the goal is for 12 months. Probably the biggest question we got, and this is, buckle up for it, folks. This is probably going to be some bad news for you. One of the biggest questions we got was like, hey, I'm just waiting on an apprentice school slot right now. I've got the rest of my pipeline done. I didn't get into this apprentice course. I'm just waiting on it. What happens when they start this new pipeline? Am I going to have to go through the Zulu course? Yep. Yeah, you are. I'm keeping my opinion out of this one as much as I possibly can. If it was me, what I would do is I would let everybody in the legacy model finish their pipeline out. If you're just waiting on an apprentice school slot, or you're waiting on 1 school or 2 schools, okay, cool. You knock those schools out. You're going to get that training at the schoolhouse, and you're just going to continue on. Then we have a break, and then we start the new model, and everybody that starts on the new model takes the new model all the way through. Now, I understand why this could possibly not work. You can't have an apprentice course team of instructors teaching multiple different blocks of instruction, right? And again, it's an Air Force AETC-ism, but instructors, if they're teaching A, the legacy model, and then they have B coming through as well, and you've got senior team and junior team, that plays havoc with everything that's going on there. It just does. You can't have people at the schoolhouse going through 2 separate courses at the same time. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work for logistics. It doesn't work for planning. It doesn't give your instructors any sort of battle rhythm that they can get used to. It's just heinous. So I understand the reasoning why you're going to have to go back through that Zulu course and before you go to your apprentice course. Some other second and third order effects of this. If you're just sitting around at JBSA and you've just been waiting on those magical orders in your class seat in the pararescue apprentice course, you're going to have to go through the Zulu course. They are getting ready to graduate the largest special warfare BMT class that they've ever had, ever. They are about to put more people in the pipeline than they ever have before. That is a true data point that is about to happen. Those folks are going to graduate. That's going to be your first class that comes out in October to go to this new special warfare assessment selection. The class seats down at Joint Base San Antonio are limited. They can't teach everybody that's there. I would assume that the people who've been in the pipeline the longest are going to go ahead and get those seats, and they're going to be in that first class. But I don't know how many students that applies to. I don't know what the class load is looking right now at the Zulu course. There's a very real possibility that some folks, due to injury, due to just the way the class seats shake out, any other number of reasons, maybe they do have a single school that they've got to get to, and that makes them miss the class start date for the Zulu course. They could have to wait until mid-March to start that Zulu course. And that could be a big extension of their pipeline as it already stands. And that sucks. But that's the game. And now that you know what it is, I hope that you can make your peace with it and you can just go on. you're going to go through the Zulu course before you go through your apprentice course. That timeline starts in October. The word that I got was, if you're not in an apprentice course right now, here or down at Kirtland, they started an apprentice course in June. I believe it's 2502. If you're not in 2502, you're going to that Zulu course. I don't know what that means if you're already at Kirtland. I don't know if it's a TDY. I don't know how they're going to do it. Again, once they come out with some firm messaging here, we'll get some more answers on that. But if you're not in an apprentice course right now, there's no next apprentice course in the old pipeline. They're starting with the new apprentice courses in the new pipeline. And for good reason, those instructors need to plan their new course flow, their new logistics requirements. They need to get their training areas locked down. They need to figure out who's teaching. There's a whole lot of stuff that these guys are going to have to jump through their, trying to keep it as PC as possible. They're going to have to do a lot of work, ladies and gents. They're going to have to do a whole lot of stuff to get ready for these new apprentice courses, even though they're cut down. There's a huge tail to this. So bad news. If you've been there for a while, you're going to have to go through the Zulu course if you're not in an apprentice course right now. And then after that, there's a very good possibility that those folks that are getting in the pipeline, they're going to go through that 3-week selection, and then they're going to get into that initial Zulu course, but those course seats are going to fill up. So there's going to be people that probably get out of selection and assessment and don't go straight into the Zulu course. And they are going to have to wait until the next class opens up for that Zulu course. And now you guys can understand how cadre talk about cones, because I guarantee right now, if you're sitting down at Kirtland listening to this, if you're waiting to get into combat control school, if you're waiting to get into SRAC, or you're waiting to go through your final phases over the TACP schoolhouse, if you're one of those guys that's further in the pipeline, you're like, I don't care about those new guys, make them wait. See why we say that? See why we respond to your DMs like, quit crying, you're not human. You just did it to your friends. At least now you see a little bit. So I think that's about it for the updates, folks. Again, I kept my opinion out of it on purpose. I did not want to be snarky. I'm trying to approach this with the most open mind that I possibly can. There's going to be a time and a place for us to see exactly how this shakes out. When we get some hard numbers and we get some hard outputs, man, I might feel completely differently. I might do the WWE heel turn where all of a sudden I'm a bad guy and I'm talking about how we need to make NDOT great again. That might happen, right? But there could be pieces of this that's a good thing. There could be parts of it that are terrible and that we need to constantly evolve. We need to look at and say, are they working? Are they not? We keep them or we let them go depending on their usefulness, because that's what we're looking for is outputs. Or this could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. We just don't know yet. But there'll be a time for it. There'll be a time for us to talk. We do 5 things here on the podcast: open, honest, vulnerable, transparent, and available. We take that really seriously, especially with y'all. It's why we wanted to get these episodes out. It's why we thought it was really important for us to get these updates out, as we got good input from our friends. We're hoping that we can get somebody from the Special Warfare Training Wing on here, and you can hear it directly from the horse's mouth. We will do our best job to advocate for you. That's our job for you guys. You guys are our team now. We are your NCOs. We are the people that are here to advocate for you and ask those hard questions of leadership if we need to. And I hope you guys understand we totally will. We 100% will hold people's feet to the fire. I'm going to get passionate about this issue. I guarantee it. I'm going to try not to get emotional. It's going to be hard, man. That beret made me who I am. Good, bad, indifferent. Being a PJ made me the man that I am today. Peaches, Trent, and I, we love these career fields. We love the Air Force. We love service to this nation. We want nothing but the best for every single one of you out there listening. And that's why we try to get you this information. So I hope that we can do right by you. We can get you the information that you want. And when it comes time, if the baby's ugly, we're going to call the baby ugly. You know that that's what we're going to do. We've always done it here. Even when we were totally willing to have those hard conversations. We're totally willing to be wrong. We'd like to be correct and not first, but we felt like this was important. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope that you guys have all the information that you need. As always, hit us up. Accessible means you guys can hit us up whenever you want. You know that DM isn't sitting in our box before you get an answer. It might not be the answer you want. It's probably going to be the answer that you need. Thanks for following. Make sure you're subscribed across all platforms. It really does help us out. Maybe go leave a review on Apple. That does help us out, helps us climb that little ladder of podcasts. If you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, that'd be cool. Consider becoming a member. We drop all these episodes to our members before anybody else. It's like a cup of coffee a month. It's really not that big of a deal. And we got a lot more stuff coming for you, from guests to pipeline updates to making sure that you guys have all the information, from training to nutrition to where to get your gear to exactly how to do stuff, even in-person training events. Anything to help you do something impossible. I know that there's a lot of change, and I want to leave you with this. The only constant in the military is change. This is not going to be the last time in your military career that something has changed wildly. It's happened to all of us. It happens constantly. Things are still changing now. I'm not even in. And sometimes I look at them like, what is that word? What is that acronym? I don't even know what that means. It just is what it is. And the sooner that you can realize that the baseline of this is service to America and to the world's greatest Air Force, the singular greatest Air Force that the universe has ever seen in history. We do things that nobody else can do. If you want to be a part of that, you're going to be willing to accept some of this change. If you're not, maybe get a mirror, because I found your problem. That's it. Out here.